Well, the first thing is Tevva's not a newcomer as such. Tevva's been in business for almost 10 years now. Founded by Asher Bennett, an Israeli, a former Israeli submarine officer. Before Tevva, Asher was in the field of electric vehicle batteries. And during that time, he became aware that batteries were a downstream activity, and he was keen to be further up the value chain of the electric vehicle industry. And second, he became aware that whilst there was a lot going on with the field of cars, there was almost nothing being done in the field of trucks, and it was an unserved market. Equally, as a former Israeli submarine officer, he was used to essentially an electric vehicle, which was a submarine. So a submarine is powered by electric motors that drive the propellers, but every now and then those batteries need to be replenished, and in a submarine they use diesel generators, and they have to use the diesel generators. They've got to come to periscope depth to put up a periscope that allows the diesel engines to breathe air, and then they can recharge. But you can imagine this is a military operation, and if you're in a war situation, a submarine coming to periscope depth makes it vulnerable, and therefore they have to plan when and where they're going to recharge the battery. So they always think about how much energy they're going to use, and therefore how they will then recharge the battery on the go. And it occurred to Asher that philosophy could be used as a way to manage the energy on a heavy goods truck. So that you could always think about, okay, how much energy are you going to use, and how are you going to work most efficiently? So that was really how he got the whole idea, effectively, of the range extended electric truck. Because any battery electric truck has a window of ranges. You put any vehicle, any amount of battery, and on one day, on its worst day, it'll do X miles. On its best ever day, it'll do 2.5x miles. Literally that much range. And you've got to specify the vehicle for the worst day. And if you specify that worst day only with batteries, the truck will carry batteries and nothing else, because batteries are heavy. And so this idea of a blended energy solution, and in today's world where we use batteries as the core energy, the fuel cell as what I call the contingent or supplementary energy, and use software to ensure that the fuel cell is used to the minimum and the batteries to the maximum, so that you always get a vehicle that can do a long range, up to 500 kilometers, always get the job done, but it will always do it at the lowest cost, lowest carbon way possible, as judged by software. So that was foundings, back in 2013. Back in 2015, we built the first vehicle for UPS. In 2017 and 18, we supplied a further 15 vehicles to UPS. Those are still in service today. They've accumulated, getting close now, I think, to 500,000 kilometers of in-fleet service, continually rising. The vehicles on the stand here are our third generation vehicle. We set a target that we would deliver the first of our third generation vehicles to the first customer on the 1st of September, and I'm looking straight behind me over there at the Thackray logistics truck, which was delivered on the 1st of September on time. We launched the first of those vehicles as a public launch, if you like, at Alexandra Palace in London in September of last year. The vehicle immediately here to my right is the first 7.5 ton fuel cell range extended truck. That was launched in the UK in June of this year. And here we are in Hanover in September, and we've unveiled the 19-ton fuel cell range extended truck. So where we are today is, we are a company, should I say, that has got vehicles now into production. Series production has started at the 7.5-ton battery. The 7.5-ton fuel cell vehicle will go into production in spring of next year, and the 19-tonner in spring probably of 24. So the real message here, above all, is that in a segment where there's an awful lot of prototypes and wonderful technology that might be into production in some years' time, Tevva has been quietly and diligently going about its business, doing the engineering, doing the testing. We're now in production. We're going to produce in the order of 1,000 vehicles in 2023. And left and right hand drive for customers in the UK and Europe. We've got We've got vehicles here in customer deliveries for Codagnotto in Italy and FM Logistics in France, many others besides. And so fundamentally what we're trying to show here is that this isn't a promise for the future, this is a promise for now. And that's where we are today. Yeah, so from an R&D perspective, I guess there have been a few sort of joint foci. Inevitably, range and the delivery of range within a payload is important. I would often say that when engineering an electric vehicle, I think there are 4 constraints that compete with each other that you're trying to optimize. One is capital cost, inevitably. In India, that's more powerful than anywhere else. Second is operating cost. Third is range, and fourth is payload. And if I went to a customer and said, would you like a truck with more range? Yes, please. Would you like a truck that has more payload? Yes, please, that'd be excellent. Would you like it to have lower capital costs? Yes, that'd be marvellous. And would you like it to have low operating? Better still, you really understand our business. Yes, I do, but you don't understand our truck. You cannot have all those 4 things at once. More range comes from more energy, and typically that means more unladen weight. So you're trading off unladen weight versus payload. Inevitably, more batteries, more fuel cells has an impact on capital cost. Fuel cell, if you use a fuel cell, you can have more energy for less weight, but the operating cost is higher. If you have a battery, you can have more energy for more weight, but the operating cost is lower. Every logistics operator has their own particular way of doing things. If you're carrying steel, all you're bothered about is weight. Volume doesn't matter. A short wheelbase vehicle, etc., lose some weight, etc., but it's all about weight. If you're a bakery, you're carrying bread, it's all about volume. Everyone is different, and so the first thing we're doing is always looking to build a truck solution that can get the best, most perfectly optimized solution of payload, range, and cost, total operating cost. So that's the envelope in which we work. So in doing that, we began with diesel range extenders. We've now moved on to pure zero-emission hydrogen fuel cell range extenders. One of the great advantages of using fuel cell as a range extender, for example, is that the cost of a fuel cell is almost directly proportional to its power output. If the fuel cell has to power the vehicle directly, this would need a 150 kilowatt fuel cell. As a range extender, a 50 kilowatt fuel cell roughly is sufficient. That's 1/3 of the cost. This is one of the ways we're looking at it. We're constantly chasing 2 things today. Now we've got to production, we've got a product that works. The 2 things above all that we're chasing, one is weight, always looking to take weight out of the vehicle wherever possible. And the second is bill of materials cost. Always, you're going to get cost coming out as a function of scale, but you're also looking to engineer out cost from a function of specification. So really those are the 2 things above all that you're now constantly driving. So today our first manufacturing base, which is recently sort of completed and fitted out, is just outside of London in the UK. It's right by the port of London, a place called Tilbury. We are immediately looking at the next manufacturing facility to be somewhere within mainland Europe. Primarily we have an overall strategy and policy of make where you sell. Make where you sell makes sense, A, because if you've got trade tariffs, you overcome trade tariffs. B, you overcome the cost of logistics. If you're transporting a car from a point of manufacture to a customer point, you can put 12, 15 cars in a transporter. Put one of these trucks in a transporter. It's very expensive to move the vehicle from the point of manufacture to the point of sale. So trying to keep the point of manufacture and the point of sale relatively close to each other geographically is important. Plus also, it's environmentally more sustainable not to transport the vehicle over endless endless miles from place A to place B, and it means you're part of the communities that you're serving. So make where you sell is a policy. So we're looking at first producing a manufacturing facility somewhere within mainland Europe. Still evaluating where in Europe right now. I think we've looked at a position in Spain. We've looked at a position in, I think even one in somewhere in Central Southern Europe, maybe Hungary or somewhere of that nature, and then possibly one in Northern Europe. And in fullness of time, you may need all three. But the question is, where is the first one going to be? But we're evaluating three possible sources, and essentially the criteria of evaluation come down to skill sets. Where are the skills available? What is the cost of labour? What is the cost of plant and land and so forth? Where our government's going to be more and less welcoming in terms of helping you with those costs, and ultimately, where are you going to sell the majority of the vehicles, and therefore, what are the impacts on logistics costs? If you're going to sell all the vehicles in Germany, put the plant in Germany. If you're going to put them all in Spain, put the plant in Spain, and so forth. But it's all a question of, it's not A, B, or C. It's more which of A, B, and C is first, because it may well eventually be A, B, and C. And then obviously North America will be next after that. I guess across the vehicle it varies. So we procure the base glider and cab externally. That doesn't need changing per se. It's frankly it's a steel rail chassis, it's standard axles and a standard cab. Everything that we do is about the next generation technology, so the drivetrains, the batteries, the battery controllers, the battery management systems, software critically. So the batteries we design and build in-house. The wiring looms we design in-house and have manufactured by contract. The battery management systems we design in-house. The software is all designed and sort of completed in-house. A lot of the power electronics are designed in-house, but inevitably sort of contract manufactured. The motor, the drive motor, is externally sourced, but it comes from a company in the northeast of England, in which Tevva was a seed investor, has a significant equity stake and a seat on the board, and that motor has been designed to our specific requirements. So whilst we don't design it, it's sort of essentially bespoke to Tevva. And then bodies and so forth, inevitably they are outsourced. Some people want a box body, some people want a curtain, some people want a flat, etc. And there's 101 bodybuilders who will do that. But overwhelmingly, the technology aspect of the vehicle, everything that essentially that makes it go and stop, is Tevva designed and either Tevva manufactured or manufactured under contract for us. Broad is our customer base is notably broad. One of the things that we've always been at pains to achieve is not to have a business that is predicated on one massive order. In this segment, we've all read the news stories of company A has got an order for 10,000 vehicles with global logistics provider X. Another one's got an order for 100,000 vehicles with global logistics provider Y. That isn't the way that Tevva's gone about its business. We've sought to ensure that we've got a very, very, very broad base of customers, including many of the very large fleets that you would know about, and a great many of the smaller fleets that are not household names. Our first 6 months of production is sold, and that probably covers at least 30 or 40 customers. I think I'll need to check exactly, but I think it's about 30 or 40 different customers that account for our first 6 months of production. So we have some of the biggest fleets in the world that we name as our customers, some of whom under confidentiality agreements, as you might guess. But obviously, here on the stand we've got Canaxia Logistics in the UK, Cotognotto in Italy, FM Logistics in France, Grupo Carreras in Spain, Correos in Spain, others we've been meeting here in the last week. So it's a very, very broad range, and not just sort of post and courier companies, but all manner of logistics and distribution operations, both third party and own account. There's almost infinite customization goes into a freight truck, but almost paradoxically, that almost doesn't affect Tevva terribly much. So if you take any one of these vehicles, you could see in the fullness of time at least 100 different body styles on the back of them. Boxes, curtains, flats, cranes, concrete mixers, refuse compactors, elevated work platforms, and 100 more I can't reel off the top of my head right now. All of that customization typically gets done by external bodybuilders who specialize in those types of bodies. Where we need to be effective from a Tevva perspective is simply to ensure that we are able to offer the bodybuilder the capability to apply ancillary loads. So whether it's a refrigeration load, which is typically electrically driven, or essentially one of two things. You've either got an electric feed for ancillaries like refrigeration, or you've got a hydraulic feed for tipping and compacting and all that kind of stuff, and cranes and so on. So basically, from our perspective, all we need to do is to provide a hydraulic electric power takeoff and an electric sort of flow from the main traction battery for the likes of refrigeration and the main traction source. Then once we've done that, then the bodybuilder can do the rest. In exactly the same way as if you go and buy a Iveco across the way, you'll say this: I want a power takeoff off the gearbox. There it is. Or I want a 24 volt feed for A, B and C ancillaries, and that's over there. So you just spread the bodybuilders with the basic feeds for the outputs they need, and then the customization goes beyond that. There's a little bit in terms of further customization in terms of things like wheelbases. The 7.5 ton vehicle is on a single wheelbase. Expectations the 19 ton will be on at least 2 different wheelbases, to allow for different sort of configurations. And again, one of the things that we have been laser focused on is focus. Getting a vehicle from nothing to being in full series production, with all the testing and all the validation having been done, is a huge undertaking. And so we've said, let's just keep it simple. Let's get that vehicle, get it delivered, get it to production, get it to customers. Once you've done that, you can then start to broaden what you can do in terms of this, that and next. But the thing is, get something to market that works. The Indian market is one that's of great interest. Inevitably, it's an enormous market, and the Indian government has been reasonably forthright in its target setting for elimination of emissions and so forth. So clearly, there's an interest there. It's a notably challenging market. One of the things that we're aware of is that, whereas in the European market, the things that people would look at would be strictly total cost of ownership across the life of the vehicle. What we find in the Indian market is the ticket price is actually more important, and getting the ticket price down to an acceptable level in India is a huge challenge. Now, having said that, it's also therefore an extremely healthy exercise, because if you can get the ticket price to work in India, there's nowhere in the world you can't compete. So it's a challenge, it's an aspiration. We have a major investment. One of our major investors is one of India's better known sort of companies in the field, and we're hoping to work with them in order to ensure that we can develop and drive that process down. So yeah, it's an aspiration. It's interesting in so many ways. It's, as an organisation focused on getting weight out of the vehicle and cost out of the vehicle, particularly in that second area, the Indian market is the ultimate test. It's the toughest test there is, but inevitably it's an enormous market, and therefore there's great benefit. If you can crack the Indian market from a cost perspective, and frankly the world becomes your oyster. And as I say, part of the issue is focus. It's been the devil's own job just getting a vehicle ready for Europe first, and getting that delivered and funded. India has to be on the agenda. Absolutely, it's impossible for it not to be. It hasn't been a first focus yet because it can't be. We simply don't have the resources, and we have companies in our peer group, if you like, that perhaps have fallen foul of trying to do too many things at once and not getting enough of them done in the time frame. So yes, it's there, but I'd love to tell you, oh yeah, we'll be in India in 2023, 2024. We won't be into India in 2023. We're looking at options. We have been looking at options for some time. With our Indian sort of investment partners as to how we might, bring the Tevva technology to bear in India. Those discussions are ongoing.